Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Now, this movie I saw almost probably about 2 weeks ago. I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about it, but it was certainly a movie that I was psyched to go check out, and mostly because of our two leads, Mr. Kevin Hart and Mr. Bryan Cranston, two guys I'm big fans of. And after everything that happened with Kevin Hart and the Oscars, I was just psyched to see what I thought looked like a slam dunk W with this movie, man. It looked like it was going to be a feel-good movie. Looked like it was going to have some real nice buddy comedy stuff with Cranston and Hart. And just, I was intrigued by the story. And I won't lie, when I saw the critic reviews were not very good, I was like, oh no. And I got a little nervous because I really wanted something positive for everybody in this cast, but specifically Kevin Hart, because dude's a heck of a guy, really talented, and he was due for a win after all of that Oscar nonsense. So I was a little disappointed when I saw the critic reviews, but you know me, I don't always line up with the critics, man. I mean, just check out my Glass review. Critics trashed that movie. I thought it was a really solid conclusion with some issues, but albeit the story they decided to tell, I thought it worked. So I was still pumped to go see this movie, and I land a little bit kind of in the middle of like the good and bad, but definitely more on the good side. And I think it's a good progressional step, specifically for Kevin Hart. So pull up a chair, man, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free on the upside. And for those unfamiliar, this is a movie that is a remake of a French film that kind of chronicled the story and the relationship between these two men. This one man, rich guy, has a terrible paragliding accident, ends up becoming a quadriplegic. Other guy, ex-con, trying to get work, and essentially Kevin Hart's character just is kind of bopping around, just trying to get people to sign off that like he's interviewing places so that he doesn't like disrupt his parole. And he thinks he's going in for like a janitorial job and ends up being like a full-time care person for, you know, Bryan Cranston's character. And because Hart is so not qualified, Cranston's character says, give it to this guy. And so our movie continues. And like I said, I think this is mostly on the good side here. I think Neil Berger does a really, fine job behind the camera, directing this thing. The pacing is pretty decent. It trips up a couple times and is maybe a little too long, but I like the camera work. I liked what he got out of his actors most of the time. And even John Hartmeer's script, it's a pretty good adaptation. I haven't seen the French film, but again, I like the story. The problem, I think, that comes from these two guys is I don't think they quite knew which story to tell, right? Like sometimes you get these big stories that have all this stuff to learn and find out about, especially in a lengthy relationship. I mean, these two guys are still best friends to this day, even though, they don't work. Kevin Hart's character doesn't work for Bryan Cranston's character anymore. So when you have all that story, sometimes you're not sure which part of the story to tell, and that I think was the biggest problem in this movie, is it gives you a lot of things, but it kind of starts to feel snapshotty. Like it's like, oh, let's check out this, let's check out this. And specifically at the beginning of the movie, it's a little clunky at the start, and really with Hart and Cranston's relationship. Like the way Hart is just kind of like, whatever, man, I'm just here, because I need a signature, but that paycheck is really nice, so I'll show up. Here you go. Like, you need me to feed you, here's food. And then all of a sudden, it's like a scene and a half later, they're like tight. And I'm like, wait, when did that relationship actually formulate? Like, completely. Some of it's kind of clunky in the beginning. Once it gets into the middle, I thought this movie was doing some really, really nice things, and I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff that was going on. But like I said, it didn't quite always feel cohesive. It just felt like it was just missing that connection a little bit. I think it's because the script didn't really know which story to tell, and it's telling a couple. But outside of that, man, like I said, I do enjoy most of this film. There are some really, really funny moments, and the cast is pretty solid. We'll start with Mr. Kevin Hart, and because he's the weakest part of this movie, and it's not entirely his fault, right? This is really his first dive into dramatic acting, and he's not quite there yet, right? He's still a little rough around the edges. In that kind of clunky beginning, he has a scene that's kind of serious with his family that just wasn't working. Like something was missing there, and they just didn't quite get what I think you needed to get from Kevin Hart in that moment. And I was like, oh, that wasn't too good. But he has other moments, that are more serious with Cranston or Nicole Kidman, where he does really kind of show off, like, hey, look, there's potential here. And that was the big thing. I think this movie showed a lot of potential and some decent growth for Kevin Hart. Then, of course, you put him into the comedy, zone, and he's really funny. And him and Bryan Cranston have some wonderful moments. But the one conundrum with Hart lately, at least, outside of Night School, because I really disliked that movie. It wasn't funny at all. But the last big comedy he was in, Jumanji, he was really good. But again, he was getting outshined by a better comedic actor in Jack Black. And here, he's just getting laughs. He gets a lot of his own laughs, but Cranston steals a couple. And what I'm starting to realize, I think, with Kevin Hart is when he is surrounded by more talented actors, instead of that really elevating his game, you actually see those people steal some of the things away from Kevin Hart. So, like I said, I don't think he's bad. I think it's a pretty decent job, but you can definitely tell there's a lot of growth to go for him, specifically when he's on screen with better actors. There are just moments where he doesn't quite fit, but he has some really, really funny moments with Cranston, specifically the 2 times he gets him stoned on weed. Those stretches in the movie are absolutely hysterical, and one of those situations stems out of a party that leads to a really dramatic section where Hart starts smashing things in a room. Really, really good. I love that scene. It was one of the best scenes with the two of them together, and really kind of forms that bond that the two of them have in a way where I was like, I like stuff like that. And stuff like that is sprinkled throughout. So like I said, a lot of potential for Hart. Bryan Cranston, the dude's Bryan Cranston. He's always amazing, man. I loved him. I thought he was tremendous in this film. To ask someone who has full mobility of their body to just act like all you can do is this for an entire movie, I would imagine would have to be very difficult, and Cranston crushes it. You really do feel like Bryan Cranston can't move anything except his head, because he doesn't move anything except his head, and he really acts his butt off in this one. And like I said, the comedic moments for him are fantastic. He is laugh out loud funny, and really meshes quite well with Hart. I would have liked to have seen, like I said, the story be a little bit more narrow and maybe focalized on something a little bit more just straight line, right? Not so many different tangents to go off on. So you really could have fleshed out and showcased that relationship a little bit better than it is. I think if you could have got those two to pop on screen even more, this would have been a really big W. But like I said, I like the two of them together a lot. They have some really funny scenes together. They have some good dramatic scenes, and I think Bryan Cranston definitely taught Kevin Hart a lot of things. Because as I said, you definitely see some progression there. Then throw in Nicole Kidman. I love Nicole Kidman. I also loved her in this role. I thought she played it really well, albeit it felt like a kind of small role, even though she's in the movie quite a bit. Again, some of the writing there, too, is a little bit clunky. But for the most part, I really dug her relationship, with the way her and Kevin Hart interact. I really like the way her and Bryan Cranston interact. There's kind of like a love story, but not really a love story because she kind of works for him. But, and that stuff it has some really cute moments. And, overall, I think those three really do kind of drive this movie and make you enjoy most of it. It's just, it doesn't quite feel cohesive all the time. And sometimes you're struggling through the ups and downs of an actor who's learning to do more. So look, this movie is not perfect by any means, but I do think the story is really, really interesting. I was very, very intrigued with their relationship, and it's an enjoyable movie to watch. It doesn't quite always connect, but it connects more often than it misses, and I enjoyed the upside for the most part. So there you go, man. That's all of my thoughts on the upside. Solid, certainly could have been better, but not a terrible movie by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's a really good feel-good story here that a lot of people, I think, will enjoy at the theater. So now, man, that's everything I got to say, but I want to know what you're thinking. Have you seen The Upside? Did you like it? Did you think that Kevin Hart, really has a lot more to learn before he can kind of really shine in movies like this? Or did you think he kind of held his own and is showing that he is growing and getting better? Did you like the laughs? Did you like the comedy? Did you like the story? How much did you just love how great Bryan Cranston is? Leave all that down below. If you haven't seen the movie, have we enticed you? I hope so, because like I said, I think this is a pretty good story, and like I said, there are some really enjoyable moments in this one. So leave all that down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give the LC Man a thumbs up, and if you're new here, hop over to that button and hit that little subscribe, and then the bell right after so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, man, I'm the C-Man, now I'm signing off. Peace! Well, as I live and breathe, you still here? Check out a video like this one, or this one, and hit the subscribe button so you can get alerts and check out everything the C-Man's got at the Cinema Sit Down.